I still remember the exact moment my world collapsed. It was a Tuesday evening in March, and I had just gotten home from my double shift at the warehouse. My muscles ached. My clothes smelled like cardboard and sweat, but I had a smile on my face. I'd picked up Sarah's favorite Thai takeout on the way home, the expensive place she loved, the one I could barely afford. When I walked through the door of our small apartment, I expected to see her curled up on the couch watching her reality shows. Instead, I found her standing in the middle of our living room, 2 suitcases packed beside her, wearing a dress I'd never seen before. It was red, form-fitting, expensive-looking. "Nothing like the casual clothes she usually wore around the house, Marcus," she said, and her voice was cold, detached. "We need to talk." I set down the takeout bag slowly, my heart already beginning to race. "What's going on? Are you going somewhere?" She wouldn't meet my eyes. "I'm leaving you." 3 words. Just 3 words, and suddenly the floor felt like it was tilting beneath my feet. "What, Sarah, what are you talking about? Is this a joke?" "It's not a joke." She finally looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Contempt. "I can't do this anymore, Marcus. I can't live like this. Scraping by, never having anything nice, watching you work yourself to death for pennies." "I'm doing it for us," I said, my voice cracking. "I'm doing it so we can build something together. We talked about this. You talked about it." She snapped. "You and your dreams of someday. Someday we'll have a house. Someday we'll take that vacation. Someday we'll have kids. Well, I'm tired of someday, Marcus. I want to live now." That's when I heard it, the sound of a car horn outside. One short beep. Sarah grabbed her suitcases, and I stepped forward, reaching for her arm. "Please, Sarah, whatever's wrong, we can fix it. We can work through this. I love you." She pulled away from me like I was poison. "There's nothing to fix. I've met someone else. Someone who can give me the life I deserve. Someone who doesn't smell like manual labor and broken promises." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "How long?" "Does it matter?" She was already moving toward the door. "How long, Sarah?" She paused, her hand on the doorknob. 3 months. His name is Derek. He owns a successful tech company, drives a Mercedes, lives in a penthouse downtown. He's taking me to Paris next week. She smiled then, and it was cruel. "He's everything you're not, Marcus. Everything you'll never be." The car horn sounded again, longer this time, impatient. I watched, frozen, as my wife of 6 years walked out of our apartment, wheeling her expensive new suitcases behind her. I watched through the window as she climbed into a sleek black Mercedes. I saw her kiss the driver, a man in an expensive suit with perfectly styled hair. I saw her laugh as they drove away, never looking back. I stood there for what felt like hours, staring at that closed door. The Thai food sat forgotten on the counter, going cold. The apartment suddenly felt enormous and suffocating all at once. Every picture on the wall, every shared memory, every piece of furniture we'd picked out together at thrift stores, it all mocked me now. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in our bed, my bed now, and tried to understand what had happened. Had I been blind? Had there been signs I'd missed? Sarah had seemed distant lately, always on her phone, dressing nicer, but I'd thought she was just making an effort for herself. I'd been proud of her confidence growing. I'd been a fool. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. I spent the day in a daze, alternating between anger and grief. I wanted to hate her. Part of me did, but mostly I just felt empty, hollowed out. She'd been my partner, my best friend, the person I thought I'd grow old with. Now she was gone, chasing a fantasy with a stranger in a Mercedes. The first month after Sarah left was the darkest period of my life. I went through the motions like a zombie. Work, home, sleep, repeat. My coworkers noticed but didn't pry. I was grateful for that. The last thing I wanted was pity. I learned about the divorce through a lawyer's letter delivered to my door 3 weeks after she left. Sarah wanted nothing from me, not that there was anything to take. She didn't want the apartment, the worn furniture, the car that barely ran. She just wanted her freedom, clean and simple. The paperwork called it irreconcilable differences. I called it abandonment. I signed the papers without contest. What was the point in fighting? But something happened around week 6. I woke up one morning, looked at myself in the bathroom mirror, and barely recognized the man staring back. I'd lost weight, not in a healthy way. My eyes were hollow, surrounded by dark circles. I looked defeated, broken. And suddenly I was angry, not at Sarah. Well, yes, at Sarah, but more at myself. I was angry that I'd let her abandonment destroy me. I was angry that I'd spent 6 weeks wallowing when I should have been rebuilding. Sarah had chosen her path. Now I needed to choose mine. I started small. I cleaned the apartment top to bottom, throwing out everything that reminded me of her. The pictures came down. The decorative pillows she loved went to Goodwill. I repainted the bedroom walls from the soft lavender she'd chosen to a clean, neutral gray.
Each change felt like reclaiming territory. Then I focused on myself.
I started running every morning before work, pushing my body until the physical pain drowned out the emotional ache. I ate better, meal prepping on Sundays like I'd always wanted to. But Sarah had complained took up too much space in our small kitchen. I started reading again, something I'd abandoned because Sarah always wanted the TV on. Work became my sanctuary. I threw myself into it with renewed focus. When my supervisor mentioned a management training program, I signed up immediately. I studied for the certification exam on my lunch breaks and late into the night. Anything to keep my mind occupied, to keep moving forward. 3 months after Sarah left, I got promoted to shift supervisor. It came with a modest raise, not Mercedes money, certainly, but enough to start building actual savings. I moved out of our old apartment into a small one-bedroom closer to work. It was mine, untainted by memories of her. I started saying yes to things I'd always declined. My coworker Mike had been inviting me to his weekly basketball games for years. I finally went and discovered I was terrible at basketball but loved the camaraderie. I joined a community woodworking class and found unexpected peace in creating something with my hands. I made a coffee table, then a bookshelf, then a bench for my tiny balcony. 6 months after Sarah walked out, I barely thought about her anymore. When I did, it was with a strange detachment, like she was a character in a story I'd once read rather than someone who'd shared my life. That's when I met Jennifer. She was a nurse at the community health clinic where I'd gone for a work-required physical. She had kind eyes and laugh lines. And when she took my blood pressure, she made a joke about white coat syndrome that actually made me laugh. A real laugh, the first in months. "You have a nice smile," she said, and I realized she was blustering, nervous. "Sorry, that was unprofessional." "It was nice," I replied. And then, surprising myself, I added, "Would you like to get coffee sometime?" She'd looked at me for a long moment as if weighing something. Then she smiled. "I'd like that." Our first date was simple. Coffee at a local shop, conversation that flowed easily. Jennifer had been divorced too, 3 years prior. She understood the process of rebuilding, the hesitation to trust again. We took things slow, both of us cautious with our healing hearts. But something grew between us. Something genuine and steady. She didn't care that I drove an old car or that my apartment was small. She loved my handmade furniture and the way I listened when she talked about her long shifts at the hospital. She appreciated my ambition, my work ethic, the fact that I was building something meaningful with my life. 8 months after Sarah left, Jennifer and I said "I love you" for the first time. It felt different than it had with Sarah, deeper, more real. Built on mutual respect and genuine partnership rather than youthful infatuation. I'd stopped being the man Sarah had left behind. I'd become someone better. It was a Saturday morning in November, almost exactly 1 year after Sarah had walked out of my life. Jennifer had stayed over the night before, and we were making breakfast together in my small kitchen, her scrambling eggs while I flipped pancakes. Sunlight streamed through the windows and the radio played soft jazz. It was a perfect, ordinary moment of contentment. That's when the knocking started. At first, it was gentle, almost tentative. Then it grew more insistent, more desperate. Jennifer looked at me with raised eyebrows. "Expecting someone?" "No," I said, wiping my hands on a dish towel. "Probably just a delivery." I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. The woman standing in the hallway made me freeze. It was Sarah. But not the Sarah who had left me. That Sarah had been polished, confident, radiating cruel certainty. This Sarah was a ghost of that woman. Her hair was unwashed, pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore sweatpants and a stained hoodie. Her face was gaunt, her eyes sunken and ringed with dark circles. She looked like she'd been crying for days. She knocked again, harder now, and I heard her voice muffled through the door. "Marcus, Marcus, please. I know you're in there. I can hear the radio. Please, Marcus, I need to talk to you." Behind me, I heard Jennifer's footsteps. She came to stand beside me, and I felt her hand on my shoulder. "Is that?" Yes, I said quietly. Marcus. Sarah's voice rose, taking on an edge of hysteria. Please, I have nowhere else to go. I just need to talk to you. 5 minutes, please. Jennifer squeezed my shoulder. Do you want me to leave? I turned to look at her, this woman who'd helped me rebuild, who'd shown me what real partnership looked like. Her eyes were concerned but trusting, leaving the decision entirely to me. No, I said firmly. You stay. This is your home too. I took a deep breath and opened the door. Sarah's face lit up with desperate hope. Marcus, oh thank God, I've been trying to find you for weeks. You moved and I... She stopped mid-sentence, her eyes darting past me to where Jennifer stood in the kitchen. Who is that? That's Jennifer, I said evenly. My girlfriend. What do you want, Sarah? Her face crumpled. Your girlfriend, already? Marcus, we were married for 6 years. And you left me for another man. I interrupted. You made your choice. Now what do you want? She wrapped her arms around herself, and I noticed for the first time how thin she'd become. Not healthy thin, skeletal. Can I come in, please? I don't want to talk about this in the hallway. Every instinct screamed at me to say no, to close the door on her like she'd closed the door on our marriage. But I saw something in her eyes. Genuine desperation, real fear, and despite everything, I couldn't turn away completely. 5 minutes, I said. You can talk here in the doorway. I'm not inviting you inside. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. It all fell apart, Marcus, everything. Derek, he wasn't who he said he was. The company, the money, all of it was a lie. He was running a scheme, living off investors and credit cards. When it collapsed, he disappeared. Left me with nothing. The penthouse was rented, the car was leased, it was all fake. I felt Jennifer's presence behind me, solid and real. That's not my problem, Sarah. I lost everything, she cried. My apartment, your apartment, I gave that up. My job, I quit to travel with him. My savings, I spent it all keeping up with his lifestyle. And when the money ran out, he just vanished. Blocked my number, deleted his social media. Gone. I've been staying at a shelter, Marcus. A shelter. Again, I said, keeping my voice level despite the turmoil inside. That's not my problem. You made your choices. I made a mistake. She reached for my hand, but I stepped back. I made a terrible, horrible mistake. But Marcus, we had something real. 6 years together. That has to mean something. I know I can make this right. I've learned my lesson. I know what real value is now. Please, I just need help getting back on my feet. A loan or just a place to stay for a few weeks while I find work? No. The word came out harder than I intended. Sarah recoiled as if I'd slapped her. What do you mean, no? Marcus, I'm your wife. Ex-wife, I corrected. The divorce finalized 8 months ago. You made sure of that, remember? You wanted nothing from me. You wanted your freedom. Well, you got it. Tears were streaming down her face now. I was stupid. I was selfish and stupid, and I know that now. But people make mistakes, Marcus. You of all people should understand forgiveness. I felt a flash of anger, hot and sharp. Forgiveness? You want to talk about forgiveness? Sarah, you didn't just leave me. You cheated on me for 3 months. You lied to my face every single day. You stood in our living room and told me I was nothing, that I would never be enough. You looked at 6 years of partnership, of me working myself to exhaustion to build a life for us, and you called it worthless. I didn't mean, yes you did, I cut her off. You meant every word. And you know what? Maybe you were right. Maybe I wasn't enough for the person you wanted to be. But I was enough. I am enough. I just needed to find someone who could see that. Sarah's eyes darted to Jennifer again, and something ugly twisted in her expression. So you replaced me. How long did you wait? A month, 2? Jennifer stepped forward then, her voice calm but firm. I think you should leave. I wasn't talking to you, Sarah spat. This is between me and my husband. He's not your husband, Jennifer said quietly. And this isn't between you two anymore. You gave up that right when you walked away. Sarah's face contorted with rage and desperation. You don't know him like I do. We have history. We have memories. 6 years of our lives are tangled together. You're just some rebound, some... That's enough, I said, my voice sharp. Jennifer has been more of a partner to me in 9 months than you were in 6 years. She sees value in who I actually am, not in what I can give her or what status I can provide. That's the difference, Sarah. That's what you never understood. Sarah's anger crumbled back into desperation. She dropped to her knees right there in the hallway, sobbing. Please, Marcus. I'm begging you. I have nowhere to go. I've called everyone. My sister won't talk to me. My friends all sided with Derek. My parents said I made my bed. You're my last hope. I looked down at this woman I'd once loved, now broken on the floor, and felt nothing. No satisfaction in her downfall, no desire to help, no lingering love, just a vast emptiness where she used to be. I'm sorry you're going through this, I said, and I meant it. But I can't help you. You need to figure this out on your own, the same way I had to figure things out when you left. I'll change, she pleaded. I'll be better. I'll get a job, I'll work hard. I'll prove that I can be the person you needed. Just give me another chance, please. It's not about chances anymore, I said gently. It's about the fact that I don't love you. I don't want you back. I've built a new life, and you're not part of it. That ship has sailed. She looked up at me with swollen, red-rimmed eyes. Because of her? Because of me, I corrected. Because I realized I deserved better than someone who would throw away everything we built for a fantasy. I deserve someone who values me in the good times and the hard times. Someone who's actually a partner. Sarah pushed herself to her feet, swaying slightly. So that's it? You're just gonna let me be homeless? After everything we meant to each other? There are resources, Jennifer said quietly. Social services, job placement programs, housing assistance. The shelter you're at should have connected you with a caseworker. I don't want a caseworker, Sarah said bitterly. I want my husband back. He's not yours anymore, Jennifer replied. There was no cruelty in her voice, just simple truth. You need to accept that and move forward. Sarah looked between us, and I saw the moment she realized this was truly over. That no amount of begging or crying would change my mind. Her expression hardened into something bitter and cold. You'll regret this, she said. When she gets bored of playing house with you, when she realizes you're just a warehouse supervisor with no real prospects, you'll remember what you had with me. What I had with you, I said carefully, was someone who saw me as a means to an end. What I have now is someone who sees me as a partner and an equal. There's no comparison, Sarah. I hope you find help. I hope you get back on your feet. But it won't be with me. I started to close the door, but she lunged forward, jamming her foot in the gap. Marcus, wait. Remove your foot, I said firmly. Just listen. Now, Sarah, or I'm calling building security. She pulled her foot back and I closed the door. I turned the deadbolt with a decisive click. For a moment, there was silence on the other side of the door. Then Sarah started pounding on it harder than before, her voice rising to a shout. Marcus! Marcus, please! I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Open the door. Please, I have nowhere to go, Marcus. The pounding continued, desperate and frantic. I stood frozen, my hand still on the deadbolt. Jennifer came to stand beside me, slipping her hand into mine. Her grip was steady, anchoring. You okay? She asked quietly. I nodded, but I wasn't sure I was. Hearing Sarah's breakdown on the other side of the door was harder than I'd expected. Not because I wanted to help her, but because it was impossible not to remember the woman I'd once loved before she'd shown me who she really was. The pounding stopped. We heard Sarah's voice, cracked and broken, speaking more to herself than to us. This can't be happening. This can't be real. He has to let me in. He has to. He's a good person. He's always been a good person. He'll forgive me. He has to forgive me. Then we heard her slide down the door, her body hitting the floor. Soft sobs echoed through the wood. I turned away from the door and pulled Jennifer into a hug. She held me tight and I realized my hands were shaking. I should feel good about this, right? I said into her shoulder. She got what she deserved. Karma or justice or whatever you want to call it. But you don't feel good, Jennifer said. It wasn't a question. No, I feel sad. Not for us, not for what could have been. Just sad that a person could make such destructive choices. Sad that she threw away everything real for something fake. Jennifer pulled back to look at me. That's what makes you a good person, Marcus. You can see someone who hurt you suffering and still feel compassion. That's nothing to be ashamed of. I'm not going to help her, I said firmly. I'm not. I know. And that's okay too. Compassion doesn't mean sacrificing yourself. You can feel bad about her situation and still maintain your boundaries. Eventually, the sobbing on the other side of the door quieted. We heard Sarah's footsteps moving away, unsteady and shuffling. She was leaving. I looked through the peephole and watched her retreating back as she made her way down the hallway toward the elevator. She looked so small, so defeated. Part of me wanted to call her back, to offer her something. Money for a hotel, phone numbers for resources, anything to ease my discomfort at her pain. But Jennifer was right. Compassion didn't mean setting myself on fire to keep someone else warm. Sarah had made her choices. I'd offered her everything I had and she deemed it worthless. I couldn't save her from the consequences of her own actions. We went back to our breakfast, but the morning's earlier peace had been shattered. The eggs were cold, the pancakes rubbery. We ate in silence for a while, both of us processing what had happened. "Do you think she'll be okay?" Jennifer finally asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "I hope so, but that's not my responsibility anymore. Do you have any regrets about how you handled it?" I thought about it for a long moment. No. A year ago, if she'd come back, I probably would have taken her in. I was so broken, so desperate to feel like I mattered to someone, but now I know my worth. I know what I deserve. And it's not someone who only wants me when they have no other options. Jennifer reached across the table and took my hand. "I love you, you know that?" "I know. I love you too." We finished breakfast and cleaned up together, falling back into our comfortable rhythm. By afternoon, I'd managed to push the morning's encounter to the back of my mind. Jennifer and I went for a walk in the park, ran errands, made dinner together. Normal domestic things that had become precious to me. That night, as we lay in bed, Jennifer's head on my chest, I thought about the different paths my life could have taken. If Sarah hadn't left, I'd probably still be grinding myself down at a job I'd outgrown, living in a too small apartment, sacrificing everything for someone who didn't appreciate it. I'd be trapped in a marriage built on unequal footing, always trying to prove I was enough. Instead, I was here. Promoted twice in the past year with real career prospects, living in a home I'd chosen and decorated myself. In a relationship built on mutual respect and genuine love, I'd built something real from the ashes of my destroyed marriage. "Thank you," I whispered into the darkness. "For what?" Jennifer murmured sleepily. "For seeing me. The real me." She squeezed me tighter. "Thank you for letting yourself be seen." 3 days later, I ran into Sarah's sister at the grocery store. We'd always gotten along during my marriage, and she looked uncomfortable when she spotted me, like she wasn't sure whether to acknowledge me or pretend she hadn't seen me. I made the decision for her, walking over with my cart. "Hey, Michelle." "Marcus," she said, relief evident in her voice. "How are you?" "I'm good. Really good, actually." She studied my face and seemed to find what she was looking for. "You look good. Happy." "I am." "How are you?" She hesitated, then sighed. "I heard Sarah came to see you. She told me you turned her away." "I did," I said simply. "I don't blame you," Michelle said quickly. "What she did to you was unforgivable." I told her that at the time. "We all did. She made her choice. How is she doing?" Michelle's expression darkened. "Not well. She's been couch surfing with people from the shelter, doing some temp work. But Marcus, she's not the same person. Something broke in her when everything fell apart. She keeps talking about how she had everything and threw it away, how she destroyed the one good thing in her life." I felt that pang of compassion again, but it was distant now. "I hope she gets the help she needs. But Michelle, I need you to know I'm not taking her back. Not now, not ever." "I've moved on." "I know," Michelle said. "And honestly, good for you. You deserve someone who appreciates you. Sarah had her chance and she gambled it away. That's on her, not you." We talked for a few more minutes before parting ways. As I drove home, groceries in the trunk, I felt a sense of closure I hadn't realized I needed. Sarah was surviving. She was facing consequences, learning hard lessons, but she was alive and had opportunities to rebuild, just as I had. The difference was, I'd rebuilt into something better. I'd used the pain as fuel for growth. Whether Sarah would do the same was up to her. When I got home, Jennifer was already there, having let herself in with the key I'd given her the month before. She was curled up on the couch reading and looked up with a smile when I walked in. "Hey you," she said. "How was the store?" "Good," I said, setting the groceries on the counter. "Ran into Sarah's sister." Jennifer's expression grew concerned. And it's really over," I said. "That chapter of my life is completely closed." I walked over to the couch and sat beside her, pulling her close. Through the window, I could see the city lights beginning to twinkle as dusk fell. A year ago, I'd watched those same lights from a different window, broken and alone, wondering if I'd ever feel whole again. Now I knew the answer. I was more than whole. I was rebuilt, stronger, better, not because of what Sarah had done to me, but because of how I'd chosen to respond to it. She'd knocked on my door looking for salvation, looking for the man she'd left behind to rescue her from her mistakes. But that man was gone. In his place stood someone who knew his worth, who'd learned the difference between love and dependence, who'd built a life he was proud of. I didn't open the door because there was nothing on the other side I needed anymore. Everything I wanted, everything I valued, was already right here, and that, I realized, was the best revenge of all. Not hurting her back, but being genuinely, completely happy without her. Jennifer looked up at me. "What are you thinking about?" I kissed her forehead. "How lucky I am. Even after everything that happened. Especially after everything that happened," I said. "Because it led me here." Outside, the city continued its endless rhythm. People made choices, faced consequences, rebuilt their lives. Sarah was out there somewhere, starting that journey. I hoped she'd find her way. Find peace, find the lessons she needed to learn. But that was her path now, not mine. Mine led here, to this moment, to this woman, to this life I'd built from nothing. And I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. The door stayed closed, and I was finally completely free.